Matt is a psychologist who's interested in studying how much children remember from watching a television show about science. He wants to know if this could be a good educational tool for schools to use to help support children in learning scientific concepts. So Matt decides to do a study. He'll show the television show to students and then give them a short science quiz to see if they remember what the show taught. That seems pretty straightforward. But even before he begins the study, he's faced with questions. What students should he show this program to? First graders? Third graders? Children in city schools or rural schools? Matt's questions center around his sample, or the group of subjects in a study. Since it's not practical for Matt to test every single kid in the world, he has to narrow it down a bit. Sampling is the process whereby a researcher chooses the sample for his or her study. For example, Matt might choose to test only students at a particular school, or only students of a particular age. Maybe he chooses his sample based on gender or favorite book. There are many ways he can choose his sample. Let's look closer at the relationship between samples, populations, and generalizability of results. Okay, so Matt wants to know how much children remember from the television show. If he's really interested in studying how much all children from around the world remember, that's a lot of children, and, as we mentioned before, he has to narrow it down a bit. The population of a study is the group of people that a researcher is interested in. Usually, the population is too large to actually measure. For example, Matt's population might be every child in the entire world. Even if a population isn't as big as every child in the world, it can still be too big to study. For example, maybe Matt's not interested in every child in the world. Maybe he's just interested in every child in the school district where he works. That could still be a very large number of students. To narrow it down, Matt has to choose who to study from a sampling frame, or group of people from which a sample is drawn. Maybe Matt chooses a specific elementary school to do his research at. His population might be the children in the entire district, and his sampling frame is all the children at the entire school. He's still not going to study all of the students at the school. Maybe he'll only choose half of the first, second, and third graders. His sample is only a portion of his sampling frame, just like his sampling frame is just a portion of his population. The point of Matt's study, just like the point of all studies, is for the things he observes in his sample to say something about the population at large. Matt wants to be able to say that all of the first, second, and third grade students in the district will behave the same way that the ones in his sample do. In that way, the main goal of sampling is to choose a sample that represents the population well. If Matt only chooses blue-eyed children to study, but most students in the district are brown-eyed, then his sample doesn't represent the population well. There are 3 factors that influence the representativeness of a sample. Number 1, sampling procedure. There are many different ways to choose a sample, and some are better than others. If Matt purposely chooses only the smartest kids in the school, his sample will not represent the population. But if he chooses kids by flipping a coin, he's more likely to get a representative sample. Number 2, sample size. The larger a sample is, the more likely it is to represent the population. If Matt only chooses 2 kids, they probably aren't going to be like most of the kids in the district. But if he chooses 200 kids, he's more likely to have a representative sample. Number 3, participation rate. Imagine that Matt chooses 200 kids, shows them the show, and then gives them all the science quiz. But what if only 20 kids actually take the quiz? The others all just throw the quiz in the trash. Then Matt's sample has gone from 200 to 20. Not only that, the students who are most likely to throw the quiz away are the ones who find science hard. So now Matt's left with the kids who are generally good at science, and his sample is no longer representative. In Matt's case, this might seem a little silly. After all, it's likely that most of the kids will actually take the quiz. But participation rates are of concern in many studies, particularly when it involves surveys. The people who respond to surveys are generally not representative of the entire population. With all of these factors affecting representativeness, you might be wondering why it's even important. Why not just do the study on the sample that you have and get on with it? The problem with that is that if the sample doesn't represent the population, the results won't generalize. In other words, the researcher won't be able to say anything about the population at large. What if Matt only chooses children who are good at science? What if he only chooses ones who have good memories? Then the results of his study won't say anything about the population at large. If Matt only wants to talk about children who are good at science and have good memories, then his sample is okay because it represents his population. But remember that his population isn't kids who are good at science and have good memories. Instead, his population is every student in the district. That means that he needs some kids who are good at science and some kids who are bad at science. He needs some kids who have good memories and some who can't remember anything. Having a sample that represents the population is important because otherwise the results will not generalize well beyond the sample. And since the point of research is to generalize to the population at large, most researchers are very focused on trying to get a sample that adequately represents their population of interest. The sample of a study is the group of subjects in the study. A sample is chosen through sampling, which is the process of choosing a sample from a sampling frame, which is part of a population. It's very important for a sample to represent the population so that the results of the study can be generalized beyond the world of the study. But there are three factors that can affect sample representativeness: sampling procedure, sample size, and participation rate.